Fast track to the top of the hour. New information on that high-profile federal civil rights trial going on in St. Paul. The other two former Minneapolis officers accused of failing to help George Floyd the night that he was killed by Derek Chauvin are planning to testify in their own defense. Thomas Lane had already indicated that he's thinking of taking the stand, but late yesterday, Toto and J. Alexander King told the judge they plan to testify as well. That testimony could happen as early as today. The prosecution rested its case yesterday, and the defense is now expected to start presenting witnesses today. All three defendants are accused of depriving Floyd of medical care. King and Tao were charged with failing to intervene to stop that May 25th, 2020 killing of Floyd, which then triggered protests worldwide. We're expecting to hear more today from police about an attempted murder in South Fargo. 27-year-old Tyler Molnar was arrested last night at a Southside parking lot. He's in the Cass County Jail for attempted murder, aggravated assault, and possession of a stolen vehicle. Molnar is suspected in a stabbing on Saturday. There has been no update from police on the victim's condition. Molnar's arrest is not related to a SWAT team call-out that happened yesterday morning. Police surrounded an area near 14th Street and 25th Avenue South for a high-risk search warrant, but they're not yet saying if any arrests were made. There are some unhappy parents this morning in the West Fargo School District after the school board voted unanimously to go forward with boundary changes within the district. Boundary changes mean some kids will have to switch schools as the district tries to ease overcrowding at some buildings. Freedom and Independence Elementary are nearing capacity. The changes are designed to help with the space crunch for the 22-23 and 23-24 school years. They also establish boundary lines for the new elementary school being built in the Rocking Horse Farm neighborhood. Meanwhile, Minnesota Senate Republicans are pitching a Parents' Bill of Rights to empower parents by giving them more access to curriculum at their children's schools. The bill would require access to class syllabi within the first 2 weeks of the start of classes and provide all instruction materials without cost to parents who request them. Teachers are concerned that the requirement would mandate more duties for an already exhausted workforce and create an opening for future censorship and book bans to prevent teachings on topics like race and gender. It is just about 6:50 now on this Tuesday morning. Let's get a check of what you can expect when you head out the door. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. Well, today we are warming things up, but it does come with some wind. And so there's that contradiction where the temperatures are rising, but it feels colder out there. Here's a look at our temperatures and wind chills. Fargo is at 11 degrees right now. Factoring in that wind, though, we still feel like we are below zero at 5 below. Grand Forks just starting to warm up as this warmer air punches in. And we're now at 1 degree above, but it feels like 12 below. Beef River Falls 3 degrees, feeling like 15 below, and Bemidji right at 2 degrees with a wind chill of 11 below zero. At Fergus Falls, another one of those milder spots at 10 right now, and it feels like we're below zero there as well. Devil's Lake at 4 degrees, 14 below your wind chill. So not as tough as yesterday, but still you're going to want the winter gear here this morning with those wind chills on that low end. Here's a look at those winds. They are out of the southeast or east, and we're starting to see more places where we have steady winds or gusts into the 20s. A gust to 20 in Fergus Falls, a steady speed of 22 in Detroit Lakes. That's not an intense gust or wind speed, but it is enough to cause some light drifting potentially across some of those roads, leading to some slick spots. Northern Valley, a similar situation, not as strong up in the northeast, but as this warm front that we're watching lifts in. Here's a look at that on the radar. You can see where the snow is ahead of the front. That will start to create some issues with visibility as that wind starts to pick up in those spots as well. So watching some snow. It's very light on the radar right now, but it could still be creating some issues with visibility where you are, with some heavier snow up to the north of the border that may dip in a little bit more into places north of Highway 2 on the U.S. side. And we're looking at the potential for some accumulating snow in those areas, perhaps 1 inch to 2, maybe even 3 inches up along the border area by the time this system moves out tonight. But the issue is going to be the wind. So we're watching that, helping to drive up our temperatures today. Out at the bus stop, not as cold, but keep in mind wind speeds into the teens, gusts into the 20s, even some 30s. So if you're driving out in open areas, you're going to run into some blowing snow, and this afternoon into some low 20s for your highs today. We watch those temperatures slide yet again after this system moves out. We'll have a little wind on Wednesday again, and then another clipper moves in for your Friday. So our train of Alberta clippers just keeps coming our way, and we're dealing with one today as we speak.
A lot of things to go over today and in the 7-day. Lisa, thank you this morning. Now 6:52, U.S. troops are on their way to Poland as tensions ramp up in Eastern Europe. 3,000 soldiers are being deployed in support of NATO allies. It comes amid rumblings of a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine, which some U.S. officials believe could happen this week. The U.S. is also temporarily relocating the American embassy in Ukraine away from the troop buildup near the border. The president of Ukraine says an attack could come as early as tomorrow. The federal government in Canada is enacting a rarely used Emergencies Act to deal with the ongoing trucker blockades. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the scope of the measure will be time limited, geographically targeted, and proportionate to threats that they're meant to address. He says the Emergencies Act is being used to strengthen and support law enforcement agencies, to keep people safe and to protect people's jobs. A protest that lasted nearly an entire week shuttered the international crossing between Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, Michigan, with protesters against the pandemic restrictions blocking that bridge. And the busiest U.S.-Canadian border in North Dakota remains open, but is blocked on the Canadian side by demonstrators. Officials say since that protest started on Thursday, traffic has slowed from up to 90 trucks a day to near nothing between Emerson, Manitoba and Pembina, North Dakota. Protesters are blocking lanes of the highway with semis and farm equipment in Canada, but they're allowing some trucks hauling livestock to pass through into the U.S. Drivers of a few smaller vehicles have also been able to make their way around that blockade. Free at-home COVID tests starting today. The North Dakota Department of Health is giving out more than 1.5 million test kits to supplement the ongoing federal program that is making free tests available. Health officials suggest people pick up tests as needed, and they ask that you start with 2 tests per household member. In Fargo, you can get them at the MAT bus station or at any of the Fargo Cass public health offices. In Grand Forks, they're available at All True, Hugo's Grocery Store, City Hall, and COVID testing sites. There is a long list of dozens of other locations around North Dakota. Find this story on the VNL News app to find out where you can find the closest one. We have new information this morning on what's going on at that former K-MART building in South Fargo. The Valley Today's J.C. Dodd joins us live this morning with details on work that needs to be done before they can tear that old building down. Good morning, J.C.
Good morning, Jordan. The K-MART behind me has been sitting empty for more than 2 years now, and this is a prime location in South Fargo. In fact, the only operating business on this lot is the Burger King. And right now, this piece of property doesn't have much to offer the families that live nearby. Now, I spoke with both officials and with the city and property developers for Enclave companies who tell me they're ready to see that change. But it's not as easy as coming in and tearing down the K-MART. Crews are coming in right now, removing asbestos and other hazardous materials, which is a process that's expected to go on until mid to late April. Now, once that's done, they'll be ready to demolish the building. And although curb appeal is a big factor, developers say they're looking into what the community really wants and needs.
That area of town has been almost untouched with new construction over the last, 30, 40 years. So a lot of the new construction that we're doing on the site is going to be the commercial redevelopment areas, kind of any of that neighborhood commercial that area of town's kind of missing.
Now, Jordan, the biggest talk around town is pictured here in yellow. If you'll see, that's going to become elderly, low-income housing, with plans for the west portion of this lot to turn into 80 apartment units. Now, closer to University Drive, they plan to put a strip mall with hopes to fill spaces with restaurants pictured there in red, health clinics, pharmacies, coffee shops, and other retail locations. Now, once the K-MART behind me is reduced to rubble and the ground thaws, they'll be ready to break ground on a car wash this spring, with hopes to break ground on that low-income housing this summer. Now, they have their eyes set on fall 2023 for the project to be completed. Jordan?
All right, and right now the Big K just boarded up with the fence around it. J.C. Dodd reporting live. Thank you this morning. And speaking of projects in the metro, 10 years of construction and about $40 million. Cass County commissioners are giving the green light to study the expansion of Veterans Boulevard all the way to 100th Avenue South, just south of Horace. County engineer Jason Benson says the project would likely start on the south end and go for about 4 miles. He says there could also be more roundabouts installed on that road. An engineering professor from the University of Jamestown is hoping to unseat U.S. Senator John Hoeven. Katrina Christensen is seeking the Democratic nomination for the seat. She is the first Democrat to announce a bid for statewide elected office. The Democratic State Convention is March 24th through the 27th in Minot, where delegates will endorse candidates for state and congressional offices. Bismarck State Representative Rick Becker is challenging Hoeven for the Republican endorsement as well. You can't put a price on love, but if you did, it was a little more expensive than usual this year, as a lot of people found out celebrating their Valentine's Day. Dinner for two was probably the most expensive part because restaurants are battling that increased food costs. Some flowers, like roses, have also doubled in cost, forcing floral shops to raise their prices. Consumer experts say that gifts with limited supply are also more expensive, and they say costs this year are the highest they have seen in years.
In the 30 years I've been doing this, this is by far the most expensive that roses, like roses and lilies, have been.
Valentine's Day spending was expected to reach nearly $24 billion this year. That is the second highest year on record. Valley News Live is once again teaming up with Make-A-Wish North Dakota for its Wishes in Flight Miles for Smiles drive. Air travel is the largest expense of the chapter's annual Wish budget, but you can help next week by donating your unused air miles to Make-A-Wish to give dream vacations to children diagnosed with critical illnesses. Well, there is some love going on between a pair of bald eagle parents rather. They're busy showering a new bundle of joy. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources says the female bird being tracked on their eagle cam laid her first egg of the year on Saturday. Last year, eggs were laid just a few days apart, so another one could be on the way. Firefighters in Florida rescued a desperate pup that somehow got stuck in a small hole. Take a look. A crew member went down with a ladder and made contact with the dog, who was very friendly. They had to use some webbing to get that dog, build the dog a safety harness to lift it out. The rescuer then emerged from the hole with the dog in tow, and the rest of the crew helped him get out. There you see, they took the pup right out of that hole. Now, thankfully, that dog did not appear to be injured in that process. The Today Show and CBS Mornings are just about to start, but the Valley Today rolls on. More live up-to-the-minute news and weather coming up for you on the Fargo CW. Otherwise, have a happy and safe Tuesday. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning.